Hello, folks. Welcome to the Tilius News Desk and the Intergalactic or Tilius Visionaries Conference. Today, we're going to Into the Dragon, also known as the CKA, based on the cult classic film Into the Dragon with Bruce Lee. A must-watch film, even if you're not a kung fu movie buff. I have a fun fact for you. Did you know that Steve and Tracy are black belts? I'll let that sink in for a moment. And a big welcome to the Emporius Galaxy. May the Force be with you. I took on the CKA on the 27th of March and successfully defeated the beast. I have described my experience in a blog on the Otilius website, otilius.io. But let's discuss a bit of strategy here. So in my preparation, I used Code Cloud. I used the course presented by Mumshad Mahanabeth, which is extremely good and extremely in-depth. It also comes with a number of practice tests, which you can really test your knowledge on and get a good feel for answering questions in the CKA. I also did all the killer coder practice scenarios, which just adds a bit of extra flavor to your learning. But the most important one for me was the killer shell. I did this multiple times. I did the killer shell multiple times because it really allows you to mimic as close as possible the exam environment where your real estate of your screen is extremely confined. And I was able to develop excellent muscle memory and to test out strategies for saving time. I got to experiment with setting up multiple terminals and how to position my browser, how much to zoom, all of these things to avoid context switching and gaining as much of that real estate on my screen as possible. For this exam, you must practice and practice as time is really against you. You think that 2 hours is a lot, it's absolutely not. You've got to be able to have that muscle memory. As soon as you see a question, you must be already formulating a plan of attack. You must be already knowing how you're going to answer that question already in your head. So that as soon as your fingers hit that keyboard, you're already starting to type out that question, figure out that question. So in my experience, it took 24 hours to get my results. You get one free rewrite. You only have 6 minutes a question, which should leave you roughly 16 minutes to review flag questions. I didn't have that time. I finished with 10 seconds to spare. Also, I would say, do not get hung up on a question. Just keep it kind of like either have a physical 6-minute clock ticking down somewhere, or just kind of have that in your mind that you only have 6 minutes. Get a feel for what 6 minutes is so that you kind of know, hey, it's time for me to move on. Don't get hung up there. I did that in my first attempt, and that cost me too much time. Make sure you go through the tips for the CKA and CKAD documentation on the Linux Foundation site, because when the proctor inspects every corner of your room, and they literally will inspect every corner, they'll literally make you pick up your laptop, walk around with the camera, and physically inspect under the desk, top of the desk, behind things. They'll ask you questions about what is that thing there? What is that thing there? Remove all electronic devices, all paper, printers, everything. Your room must literally be like a hospital room, except without any medical equipment and no bed, of course. They even asked me if I had a glass tabletop that I could use. Unfortunately, I didn't have a glass tabletop, but thank goodness this will let me write. So I'm just reiterating that the proctors can be extremely focused on making sure that that room is 100% the way it should be. I had to close blinds too, in case somebody could stand outside of my garden, I guess, and with flashcards giving me answers. You don't even have time for that. But anyway. Also, do not whisper the question to yourself. The proctor will jump out with this huge message that comes out across your screen and tell you to please stop whispering, which really breaks your concentration. I found that a bit annoying. So read questions out in your mind, speak them out to yourself in your mind. Although I prefer to speak them out loud, you can't do that in the exam. You can use any screen as long as you have a webcam, of course. So for example, my webcam is built into my Mac. So I had to use my Mac screen, which thank goodness is 16-inch. I would say if you're going smaller than 15, it's going to be tough because of the screen real estate problem. So try and use a bigger screen if you can. It's just going to help a lot. If you can shave seconds here or there in any of your process, I recommend it. The more time you can save, the better. And be quick and comfortable with on the bash command line and get familiar with VI. So if you really practice in that small environment, that screen environment, and you're fast with bash and with VI, it'll make you extremely comfortable when you get to the exam. I didn't bother with Tmux and any of that. It's just too many more things to remember. It was just too much. I just took my terminal and split it into two. I then used a very bright green font, and I enabled copy on selection just to speed up things. I also zoomed the Kubernetes documentation page to 90% to score as much of that real estate, and made sure that on the documentation page, the shortcuts on the side were visible. Also, what is also very annoying is that the documentation page has an extremely huge red banner, which you cannot get rid of, which steals a lot of space. I don't know if it's taken down yet. The last time I checked, it was still there. So just keep that in mind. You can also write on weekends, which I really recommend because it allows you to be way more relaxed without any work distractions. I did try writing in the week, which I don't recommend. I'd rather take a weekend if you can write on weekends. It makes much more sense. And also to use, when it comes to your commands, use declarative commands as much as you possibly can, just to even build out the YAML skeleton for the answer. It'll just save you an immense amount of time. And it also helps with you to remember how to answer a question or course content that you went over. Right. Let me just share, after all of that, the blog that I wrote on the Otilius website. Just whilst I go over the keyboard kung fu. So this is the article. And that's right. Defeat is just a state of mind. And you're not ever defeated until you've accepted that as a reality. I thought I'd put in a bit of Zen there. Right, keyboard kung fu. So the keyboard kung fu that I used was, these are the main commands. I use these commands a lot. And I just spelled that wrong, so I need to fix that. Never mind. kubectl create-f, file, kubectl run, kubectl replace, --force-f, and kubectl get. You will use those a lot. So get used to taking that command and using that for whatever you need to do. Also, get very familiar with the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet's got a mountain of awesome stuff in there. Even if it's not particularly focused on answering the question, it gives you a really good bit of starter code on how to answer a question. So, for example, this one is fantastic for answering JSON path queries, for example, because it allows you to help you understand how to fashion your query to match getting that piece of JSON path and the correct answer for answering the question. Of course, I also created aliases. In the beginning, I had a ton load of aliases, which I realized was far too many to remember, because you have to edit the bash.c file yourself, and that also is added to as part of your exam time. So you don't want to have a lot. You just want to have a few. And these are the ones that I found, these are the best. For me, when I wrote the exam, these were the best. Basically just clearing the screen, going back to my history and using my commands in history to just reuse them. The replace command, you can see I shortened it to -ff. Sourcing my bash file, editing my bash file. Also, making these two variables is a massive help, and they're all over the internet actually as a recommendation, and they really are excellent. So you want to do dry runs and then export that into a YAML file so that you've got the skeleton code. And then another one is, say you need to delete a pod for whatever reason. You don't want to wait. You want to hammer that pod with brute force. So you force it and you don't give it any grace period. You just destroy it because it's all about time here. So these were my tips. I hope many of you find these useful. If you want to write, I really recommend that you go for it, because if I can do it, so can you. And this could even be Steve. This looks like Steve. Yeah, he's definitely doing a fly kick here. Smashing that CKA, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's all about. And thank you very much. And We'll be seeing you soon.